But first, we're going to start in Hong Kong because police have used tear gas and water cannon again to disperse the thousands of people who've come out for the 22nd straight weekend. Many of them were stopped from going into a park. That's where the anti-government gatherings are often held. Prominent activist Joshua Wong, he'd called for 100,000 people to come out on Saturday. The protests began against proposed changes to extradition laws, which have since been scrapped. We can go live to our correspondent Divya Gopalan, who's there. And so things have got ugly yet again in Hong Kong. What's the situation where you are?
That's right, Martine. I am in Hong Kong's financial district, main shopping district. Usually this place is teeming with people over the weekend. But once again, the protesters have taken it over, but despite all the police's efforts. As you can see behind me, they've set up barricades on one of the main roads in the city centre. This is one of the main arteries that takes you to the east and west of Hong Kong Island. Earlier in the day, protesters had gathered at Victoria Park. Police had fired tear gas there, trying to disperse them. Three of the protests were authorized by police earlier in the day. They had permission to protest, but they were later broken up with police saying that they weren't allowed to wear face masks and told protesters to disperse. Protesters once again in a confrontation against police. So then again, you saw the tear gas, the water cannon, and it seems to have all backfired. Originally, they were contained in a park, Victoria Park, a few hours ago. Now they seem to have spread across Hong Kong Island, the main city centre of Hong Kong Island, and taken over main roads. Once again, using the philosophy of be water, dispersing when police come in all directions, then suddenly regrouping and setting up barricades and taking over main areas of the city.
And Divya, who's been calling for the autonomy? We said that this has been described, this particular march has been described as an emergency call for autonomy. Who's calling for that? And is that exactly the objective of most of these people?
Martine, the main characteristic of this protest is that there isn't a single organizer. As you see every weekend, messages get sent out on apps, on social media, and people start gathering. There isn't a leader to this protest, but this time, these protests over the weekend have been backed by the democracy icon Joshua Wong, who, as you said, asked 100,000 people to come on the streets. He wants to highlight the fact that Hong Kong's democracy, or Hong Kong's system with no democracy, is flawed. He wanted to run in local council elections, but earlier this week he was disqualified, he says, for political reason. So the protests earlier today were highlighted or were supported by those Democratic candidates who are planning to run in the local elections. But another reason why people are out in the streets again is because the Communist Party held a very closed-door meeting earlier this week. Usually nothing much comes out of this meeting, with particularly regards to Hong Kong. But this time, in a very unusual move, they mentioned Hong Kong, saying they wanted to improve the legal system, quote unquote, and the national law. Giving an ominous warning to people of Hong Kong that they may try and put into place a national law system which will once again stifle Hong Kong people's freedom. So along with that, this is one of the few times that Beijing has responded to these protests. And once again, it's not responded in the way that protesters want. Instead of responding to their demands or what they want, they've instead tried to clamp down on the movement that's taking place here in Hong Kong.
All right, Divya, thanks for that. Divya Gopalan, our correspondent there live in Hong Kong.